Welcome to the Cara Michelle Show, where we break out of the matrix together and return heaven to earth. This is a place for the spiritual seekers and leaders, the dreamers and doers, the conscious creators and world changers. You can expect a little bit of this, a little bit of that, but mostly a whole lot of purpose, freedom, and sovereignty. And of course, all things quantum. May this podcast serve you in remembering the truth of who you are, all that you came here to do, and how deeply supported you are in doing it. You are incredibly powerful and your mission is protected. So it's time to dial up your frequency and recalibrate to your higher self and limitless potential. Get ready, because we're about to blast off. A new reality awaits you on the other side. I'll see you there. One thing I've noticed about the inner healing journey, and when you start to cultivate awareness around beliefs and patterns and places that you learned certain things or old experiences that caused you pain, it is quite normal for that to bring up a lot of different emotions, possibly frustration and anger or resentment towards those who were involved. And I want to touch on today the power of forgiveness and also things that have helped me in the past, because even recently, in the last month, I've been doing a lot of work around wounding from both of my parents and what I refer to often as the lower masculine and lower feminine, or the wounded masculine, or the wounded masculine and wounded feminine, and the ways that this can deeply impact us. And so, as I was going through my own process, it did bring up a lot of anger and a lot of pain. And I know I'm not alone in that. So, I want to talk about navigating that and how forgiveness can help you break those patterns once and for all. Because as long as we are unaware of where these things started or the root causes, then we're typically going to play out those patterns unconsciously. And you can probably think of something in your current reality that is a repeating pattern. And if you think hard enough, you can probably trace it back to something from your upbringing, something you observed or learned from your parents, possibly even something that you never ever wanted to repeat. And that was the case for me because I love both my parents. They have beautiful hearts and they always did the best that they could. And I know that. And the programming. Damn it, it's always the programming. The programming that they had and the traumas and things that they hadn't worked through that naturally influenced their operating system, the way that they showed up. Um, that is where the challenges arose. That is where the pain kind of influenced me, or where things got passed down. And so I remember very, very young already seeing, I was hyper aware as a kid and extremely empathetic and picked up on a lot of stuff at a young age. And I remember seeing a lot of things that I knew I didn't want to repeat, and very many traits from both sides that I just thought, I don't ever want to be like this. And I'm grateful because that influenced me in so many ways of what I wanted to make sure I was aware of as I got older, or things that I wanted to work through, or paths that I knew I didn't want to go down. So it was something to be grateful for sure. But in a recent quantum healing experience, and but in a recent quantum healing hypnosis practice that I was going through, I had a really beautiful moment. And that's why I want to bring the forgiveness into play, because I had been struggling earlier in the day, feeling some anger, definitely, about certain things that happened, and really just needing to process, because as an adult, I'm looking back at these moments, these memories, and I'm going like, how could you possibly think that that was a good idea? Or how could you possibly not realize what you were influencing, or how those words would hurt, or what that would create for me? And as I said, I am very aware of the programming, and like I said, no intention was there on their part to cause that kind of pain. But once you become aware on this journey and you do realize how the subconscious works, and you realize how kids are observing and absorbing everything, it becomes a little bit more challenging to ignore or to bypass how things may have influenced you. So I was working through a few different things, really feeling this emotional charge around the ways their actions and words had influenced me, and frustrated that they didn't do any better. And it was a little bit of like that pain coming up around those moments. So, as always, your girl, she lets herself feel it. So, I was feeling the emotions first before I went into the quantum healing hypnosis. And it was in that practice, though, that I did what's called a timeline repair, and going back to these different memories and acknowledging, noticing, feeling, seeing what was created in that moment, and then bringing in my higher self, bringing in God's presence, feeling that I wasn't actually alone, and being able to see those higher perspectives around how the things that they said or did was just their own pain, it was their own stress or trauma or lack of awareness, and it wasn't meant to be something that would impact me for oh 30 years, but not quite that long, but maybe some of them were. But I brought in that higher awareness, and that's always such a beautiful practice to help release some of that emotional charge and that heaviness, when you realize that it wasn't intended to cause the imprint that it did. But then after that, I started to go back to both of my parents' childhoods. And it was really, really cool, the things that I was shown, and helped me feel a lot more empathy and understanding for them and why they both were the way that they were. Because I went back to my mom's childhood, and I was watching a movie and seeing her with very, actually both of them had very uninvolved parents, as I would kind of make a general assumption. Most of that age range was not around at all and not involved, like really old school parenting styles. So I saw my mom as like this 5 or 6 year old girl. She had three older brothers, parents who weren't there. My grandma is definitely not very emotional or warm, we could say. And I just saw, like, it broke my heart. This little girl who didn't really feel loved, didn't receive attention or support, had no guidance and no nurturing care, and basically had to raise herself. And so it allowed me to feel such a deep level of empathy for certain things that then she passed on to me, that did really hurt, but I could understand how truly that was just what had been normalized for her at such a young age. And then I went to my dad's childhood and I saw him. I think I should know this. His family was like 8 or 9 kids, I think. And again, parents very uninvolved, a lot of unhealthy habits and drinking. And I saw him at about 7 years old with his basketball and closest friends his closest friends from school, and just wanting to play, just wanting to run wild and be free, but coming home to certain dynamics and stresses as well that like a 7 year old shouldn't be dealing with. And both of these experiences, in tracing back to my parents' childhood, it really did create such a major shift for me in my own awareness, my own understanding, and my ability to forgive them instead of holding on to, well, you shouldn't have done this, or how could you do that to me? And some of those, like, valid, but also kind of victim narratives that otherwise could have taken control and taken a lot of power away from me moving forward. By being able to see their childhoods and realize, well, they actually experienced a lot at a really young age that wasn't healthy either. And that doesn't mean I'm condoning, but it helps you to see that it was all learned from somewhere and they actually made strides so much further from their upbringing. It's just that every generation is still dealing with so much trauma and so much pain and so much old programming. It's really beautiful, I think, to look at the world we're starting to create now and the fact that so many people are waking up to their own inner power. They're waking up to the way that traumas play out and the way that their subconscious or their mind is holding on to things and how they don't want to repeat intergenerational trauma. And so, even though it can be really challenging to be the ones doing the work, I saw a beautiful quote the other day where this lady was sharing about how, yes, it's painful, but everything you break is saving your child or your children from having to fight that same thing. So every single piece that we break away, every single thing that we heal or reframe and find freedom from, we are able to pass that healing on to the next generation so that they have one less layer to face, which for those of us who have incarnated into some pretty dense experiences, some pretty heavy traumas and heavy burdens, it can be so much to face these head on. So, mini shout out. You're doing amazing. Thank you for your service to yourself and to the world. It does pay off and it's so beautiful and it makes such a difference. And also just taking the moment to recognize that, yes, by you breaking these patterns and healing these things, it means that it doesn't have to go down through another generation. Sometimes I imagine, like, what would life be like if our parents' generation had way more access to this stuff? And if instead of being caught in like super duper hustle culture and kind of coming out of some of the wars and all the different stresses and fear and famine and scarcity and lack and pretty toxic masculine feminine dynamics, if that hadn't been the case, how much further along would we all be as a society? And how much differently would our upbringings have been if they had had the tools that we now have? it's really beautiful to see that and to realize that even though you may wish that they had done some of this or had access to that, and it would have saved us from having to break those layers, it's really beautiful to realize that, like, we do have, I would say, a luxury in being able to do this work now and have a deeper understanding so that we can pass things on from a more healed and whole perspective. So I'm inviting you in this moment, if you have been noticing certain ways that your upbringing has maybe still been weighing down on you, or things that your parents did or said or didn't do or didn't say, if you're noticing those things that are impacting you, allowing yourself to process whatever emotions come up around it, because they're there for a reason. And there's, like, you deserve to be angry, you deserve to feel these things if that's there, and that's not like a bad emotion to be feeling. There's no such thing as a bad emotion. So honoring that, and then also taking it that one layer deeper around where your parents must have learned it from, or that greater level of understanding and empathy for their upbringings and the way that this maybe was normalized for them. And so, of course, they just naturally passed it on to you. And what I personally believe, and why forgiveness, I think, is the key, and it really does set us free in so many ways, is that until you forgive, or until you make peace and release the charge, you cannot fully take your power back. So if, for example, let's take myself. If I didn't work on forgiving both of my parents in this recent example, I would actually be giving power away to them, to my past, to these experiences, to things that don't serve me, whether that's beliefs or habits, right? I'm literally giving my power, my life force energy, my focus, everything. I'm giving myself away to things that I know aren't serving me, or things that I know are bringing me down or causing me pain. And when I forgive, when I see a higher perspective and I can let go of some of that heaviness, it's actually taking the power back to realize, even though that happened, I can still feel good within myself. Or even though that played out that way, I can still be here in the present and pursue something so much better, or break the habit, or stop giving my power away to that belief, or stop replaying the memory and blaming them or feeling hurt by it. And instead, I can feel empowered by it. And instead, I can move forward in a way that's going to benefit everyone. I think forgiveness I think forgiveness allows us to become whole again, and it allows us to recollect and gather back these parts of ourselves that otherwise do get trapped in the pain, or in the old story, or in the blame game. And we get to gather those, collect them, bring them back, and reunify with all that we are, which is, I'm so much more than my past. I'm so much more than my upbringing. I'm so much more than the things that someone said to me or that someone did to me. And this doesn't even have to be parents, this can be any experience in your life. It's truly the realization that when you forgive them, it doesn't mean you have to forget it or allow people in your life if they're continuing to cause you harm, but it's just that you're closing that old chapter and you're saying, I'm going to take my power back from this experience, and I'm going to move forward with my best foot forward. I'm going to move on with my best foot forward. I'm going to take these steps and these strides to where I want to be no matter what. And I'm not going to give you power by blaming you. I'm not going to give you power by being angry, because that's still giving a lot of energy to someone or something. I'm not going to give you power by replaying it over and over again. Maybe I replay it a little bit. Maybe I need to face it, sit with it, cry, scream, journal, whatever. But after I do that, then I'm going to make a conscious decision to let it go, to close that chapter of that book and move forward into the next steps, into where it is I want to be. We always have these choice points in how we want to handle life. And I know it's not easy because I've also, like you, experienced a lot of heavy pain and heartache and things that probably during the time I never imagined I would forgive. And I'm so grateful that I did, because I definitely wouldn't be where I am today, and I wouldn't be able to be in my heart and feel so light and so free and so full of love if I were still holding on to that pain so tightly. So I really encourage you to do what you can, do what it takes to bring forgiveness in, even if it's just a little bit at a time. And this is also something that I teach very deeply, and I bring the exact practices and the hypnosis tracks for you inside my Connect Quantum Healing Bundle, which is all about our relationships. It's all about healing mother and father wounds and processing a lot of these things that maybe haven't been processed. Maybe they need to be witnessed and cleared out of our subconscious and our energy field so we can move forward, as well as the inner child healing. Every single one of us has experienced a lot that our little child self was probably not prepared for, and that maybe did a number on them. And once again, the beautiful thing is, as a grown up, we now have the power and we do have the tools and we have the ability to shift those things and to no longer be a victim to the circumstance and to no longer let our inner child feel wounded or left behind. And through also deepening your connection to your higher self, to God consciousness, to the loving creator who was actually with you through all of it and didn't create these things to spite you or because you were unworthy or undeserving. In fact, I believe the programming was deeply influenced by people. God created us so divinely, so perfectly, and had we not received the influence through society, through years of generational trauma, through wounding and pain that had been passed down, we would not be in the state that we're in right now. And so reconnecting to God and feeling how supported and loved you are allows this forgiveness and this healing to deepen as well. So there's a link down below if you're wanting to do this work further and have assistance with the actual reprogramming. These are some of my favorite tools, and I do this every single day in some capacity because it's so powerful, and there's always something coming up. There's always another layer of the onion or an awareness around something from the past that's maybe limiting you or holding you back, or something you want to activate and feel more empowered and strong in. And so this, in my opinion, is the most powerful process to do that in really pretty short amounts of time each day and allow you to truly reconnect to all that you are. As I mentioned, gather and bring all those parts of you back so that you feel totally unified, totally sovereign and whole within yourself. And you're going to notice how deeply that impacts all relationships moving forward, and the way that you show up, the way that you carry yourself, the way that you interact with others, the standards you set, the way that you no longer tolerate things that don't serve you. And I've got to say before I end this, that was one of the most beautiful outcomes from this recent quantum healing towards my parents, was that after doing the forgiveness and after processing some of the wounds that had come up for me, and then seeing their childhood memories play out and seeing timelines back there and what had influenced them, it allowed deeper conversations with both of them. It allowed a deeper understanding where I was able to communicate and share some things and learn more about both of them, because it's really easy to forget that they were kids once too, and that they never said they were perfect when they signed up to be parents. And it was really beautiful to process some stuff together. And aside from that, also just the awareness that I got to walk away with around, okay, yes, these are some things that they're maybe playing out, or unconscious patterns that they have, and they might not be aware of it yet, but because I am, and because I know that doesn't make me feel good, I can now take the empowered stance for myself, protect my own inner child, guard myself in the way that I need to, in terms of not enabling the patterns again, or not letting certain things to repeat, not letting myself be influenced the way that I had been for my whole life. And that alone is priceless, to be able to spend time in an environment or in a dynamic that would have triggered you, but now you're able to go, oh, that's actually has nothing to do with me. And I can either confidently speak up and remove myself, or I can sit here as the observer and realize, like, this is their own stuff, this is their own story and narrative, and I don't even want to get pulled into it, and it's not necessary for me to get pulled into it, because this is their thing. And so I could have that sovereignty to continue moving forward in a way that serves me, which I also have seen from countless experiences of this, does teach them and lead them to an opportunity to do the same. And so this intergenerational growth becomes possible from me holding it down in new ways. So I just really want to encourage you to not only do this work for yourself, to set yourself free and be able to stand fully uh, true, fully in who you are, but also knowing that it does impact every single person you come in contact with. And you're going to be so happy by the cycles that no longer repeat because you've made these changes within your inner world. So, again, the quantum healing hypnosis bundles are linked down below. This one particular is called Connect, specifically about your relationships and healing past pain, as well as activating those higher templates so that you're no longer stuck in the wounded masculine or wounded feminine, and you're able to operate from the divine masculine and divine feminine traits, really embodying those characteristics, and also being able to attract that in your relationships moving forward and call that forward from those around you. So I hope this message serves you. I hope you know that you are worthy of being free from past pain as well as intergenerational pain. And I really hope this sparks even a glimmer of forgiveness towards those who have hurt you for your own benefit, because you deserve to continue moving forward free from these things. And I know that forgiveness is a big step in helping you get there. So I'm sending you so much love on your journey as you do this, and I will see you again soon.